We don't know when we are going to die. We don't know how we are going to die. So, how do we prepare for the end of life? My name is Nick Kickbush, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about preparing your family for end of life care. My grandfather was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer at age 49. He would later die at age 51 of all sorts of complications. This was 5 years before I was born, but I've heard all the stories about what my family wishes they would have done differently. He was a fighter, so aggressive care was the only option he approved of. But he was miserable. Much of the last 2 years of his life were spent in hospital beds, barely having enough energy to move about. When he finally gave up and stopped treatment, he told my grandma, "This is not a quality of life worth living. I want to go home and rest peacefully with my family." Unfortunately, he was unable to make it home, and this really bothered my family. My family, along with so many others, were not prepared. This is the biggest mistake families make. Families often avoid having the conversation as it is a hard conversation to have. We don't want to talk about someone we love dying. Over-aggressive care is another mistake families make. This is another very hard discussion to have. At what point do you stop or lessen treatment and let the disease take its course? It is important to have the discussion so you are prepared to inform the doctor of your decision. Too often, care does not align with the patient or family's wishes because the family does not know what they want. My goal today is that everyone will have the discussion with their families sooner than later. Gather an understanding of what your family members want when it comes to end-of-life care, and make sure they have an understanding of what you want. It is important to have these wishes in writing. Also, don't be afraid to do research. Take time in making your decision and give your family members plenty of time to make these decisions as well. All adults should have an advance directive. A pulse form should be considered when diagnosed with a serious illness. A pulse form does not replace an advance directive. They actually work together. An advance directive is a legal document that provides guidance about what types of treatments you want to receive in the case of a medical emergency. An advance directive also decides who can speak for you when you are unable to speak for yourself. A POLST is a medical order for specific medical treatments you want during a medical emergency. A pulse is only necessary for individuals with serious illness or advanced weakness near the end of life. There are so many options when it comes to end-of-life care. The most common are palliative and hospice care. Both of these are options that put an emphasis on the patient's comfort. The difference being palliative care can begin at diagnosis. Palliative care can take place while treatment for the disease is being continued. Hospice care comes into play when treatment of the disease has stopped and it is clear that the patient is not going to survive. There is no one way to go about end-of-life care, so be sure you do your research and find what best suits you and your family. 3 years ago, my other grandpa was in a serious car accident and was later diagnosed with MS. He went downhill very quickly. Learning from past experiences, my family was prepared this time. He would reside in my aunt's basement for the last year and a half, while other family members would do what they can to help. Family visited often, and while he was in a great deal of pain, he was happy. We utilized palliative care at first, and when it became clear he was not going to make it, we stopped treatment and started hospice care. A few weeks after hospice care began, it was pretty obvious death was near. More and more family came and visited, as well as friends. He would take his last breath with all of his family and friends around his bed. So what are you going to do to make sure you and your family are prepared?